In this video, I'll be talking about a few advanced Git concepts. And for this, I've created this application you can see on the left side. And on the right side here, we have a terminal. Here we can see that we already have a Git repository, which was created by the Create React app. And then we created a commit ourselves. Something to know about the Git is that these are called the commit shards, which are the identifiers for the commits. And we can also see this log in a one-line style like this. You can also notice here that Git has the concept of head, and head is basically a kind of a pointer to where we are currently in the repository, or the Git history. You could say when we create a new branch, then head will point to that new branch, but currently we are just on main. First of all, we want to share the code on GitHub, so let's start with that. We'll go here to GitHub and we will push up this application. We'll call it HYS as in Hack Your Snippets, and we'll make it public. And we will just follow the instructions down here because we already have an existing local repository, meaning that it's not connected to GitHub yet. We'll do that. Here we're adding a remote, and we're giving the remote a name called origin, which is not something that needs to be called that, but that's best practice. So we add that, and here GitHub is telling us to, suggesting that we could change the branch name, but it is already called the main. If yours is called master, then you would just say master down here, but ours is called main, so we'll just go ahead and push our main branch to GitHub. This application you can see here on the left side is not important in itself. It is only being used so we can have some context when we're making the different Git commands. So don't pay too much attention to the application itself. We will be focused on how we can interact with Git and the code itself. So the first thing we'll do, which is a very common thing you would do when working with the Git and GitHub, is to work on a feature branch, meaning that you're going to make a change and you want to keep them isolated from other people's changes, and we will do that with the branches. The first change we want to do is that there is currently a visual problem, which is that the button is not supposed to look like this. I'll go and make the change to how it's supposed to look like. Now we see that it has the proper style now. And here, let's start by saying git status to see what has been done. We can see that we have modified a file, and to see the changes we can say git diff. And basically we just we were supposed to have this class name, but we forgot. So now we are adding that back, and we will create a feature branch or a branch for that. The name feature branch doesn't mean anything special. It's just that you can have something like a a hotfix branch, or you could have a release branch. But a featured branch means that it's a branch you will create with a new kind of feature, or in this case, it's like a visual fix. We can create a new branch by saying git branch, and then we could say fix star button style, and then we would need to afterwards change to that branch. But actually, we can do that in one step by saying git checkout with the B flag here, B option, saying that create a new branch and then check it out, or meaning switch to that branch. So we do that like that. And now you might be doing have a habit of doing like git add dot. But if we had a file like so here I'll create a new file as well. This should not be pushed to GitHub. Call that my notes. If we had this extra file and we set git add dot, then it would add both the changes from the app.js, but also add this notes. So being explicit about what you want to add, or also called what you want to stage, and then commit is better in most cases. So here, let's take a look at that. So now we have staged this change, and we will do a git commit, and we will provide the message. That's what the M means, I think. So we will say fix star button style. You can see that the git commit message is almost the same as the branch name. So let's commit that, and this commit is currently in a local branch, meaning that it's not on GitHub. You can go here and look at all the branches, and we just see the main branch. So to push this to GitHub, we do basically what we did in the beginning when we pushed the main branch up to GitHub. We will do this. Here the U is important because it will connect our local branch with the branch on GitHub. So when we do push and pull, it will know where to push to and where to pull from. If we didn't do that, then we would need to include the branch name when we do pulls and pushes. So let's do that. And we should now see that we have our branch here. And let's go back to the screen here, and GitHub will allow us to create a pull request quickly here. And let's check the changes. That looks good. We will say create pull request. It's normally a good idea to have a description and perhaps have some kind of screenshots included, but we will not do that in this case. So now we are back on the main branch, and we will we have the ability with Git to have multiple people working on the same code in parallel. That's the power of Git and GitHub. And somebody else took care of that visual thing that we just fixed, and that is in a pull request. It's in review, and while that is being looked at by someone else, we can go ahead and delegate a different task to someone else now. And that is currently these buttons are actually not working. The idea is that when we press, this number should increase. So let's implement that. That should now work. Let's check it out. We can see that it now works. So let's go over here, and it's very common to do the git status and do the git diff. And we can see the changes, which looks good. When we click the star, we create a new API call. We do a post, and then we have a new on-click event handler, which makes sense. And now we can go ahead and commit this, saying hook up star button to API. But actually this was not what we wanted to do. We committed directly on the main branch. As you can see here, we can see that we are on the main branch. Actually, what we actually wanted to do was create a new branch and again create a pull request and have someone else review this code. We haven't pushed to GitHub just yet, so what we can do now is we can actually rewrite the Git history. If you look at the Git log, we can actually take the latest commit and undo it, but still keep the changes. For that, we have git reset soft, and then we can say head. This will basically mean go back to the previous commit. So if we do that and say git status, we can see that we have some staged changes. So to view those, we will say git diff staged, because if we just said git diff, you will not see those changes. We will only see them when we say git diff staged. And those were the changes we just did, so that looks fine. But actually, let's do like this and say restore those staged changes, meaning that we want to unstage them. So again, we still have the changes, and we do a git diff now. It should look fine. And at this point, you might have experienced something like this, where you're currently working on something else, and then you want to look up and change branches, basically. So let's see what happens if we try to change to this branch that we created previously. You can see that we are not allowed to do that because we have some conflicting changes. And let's find a way to get around that. And you can actually see here that it is saying commit those changes or stash them. So this is what the stash is really useful for. We can say git stash, and now when we do a git diff or git status, we will see that those changes appear to be gone, but actually they are stashed, and we can get those back later on. And now if we try to check out that branch, it works. And on the left side, you can see that we see these visual changes again. So from here, we actually want to, similar to what we did with for this visual change, we want to create a pull request with where we make the star button actually work. So you might recall we could do something like this: a hook up star button. But if we just do like this, then we will in this branch also include the changes from the fixed star button style branch, because we're currently on that branch. We can either switch to main and then create a branch from there, or we could just here say create a new branch with this name based off of main. So if you do that, we can say git log, and we will see that we only have the 2 commits that we had from main, which is what we want. And now we can bring back the stash changes. We can do that in 2 ways. If we say git stash apply, we get those changes. And if we say git stash list, we can see that we still have something stashed. Let's restore this to go back again. The other way would be to say git stash pop, and that will basically do the same thing, but it will also remove the stash change from the git stash list. As you can see here, the stash list is currently empty. So apply will not modify the stash changes, but the git stash pop will. So let's just try here. Yeah, this does what we want with increasing the count. And now we are on a separate branch. That looks fine. We want to commit this. We can do like this, where we are saying that add. So this A here will add and then commit in one step, but it will not include the untracked files. It will just include the modified files and the deleted files. So that's a nice shorthand way to do that. And let's say hook up star button to API. And similar to before, we want to push this to GitHub like that. And we will create a pull request as well for that. Now let's take a look at the pull requests we have, and let's merge them. Normally when you have a pull request, it will go through some kind of review by someone else, and they will approve or come with feedback to how you can make changes to make your pull request better or fix some issues that you didn't consider. But looking at these changes, it looks fine. So we want to go ahead and let's say it's approved now. We have the options of merging, and we have different options. This can be configured on GitHub, and normally by default you will have all these 3 options. We can go back here and look at the history here. We can see that we actually ended up merging in 2 commits, and that's because this is the commit from the branch, and then this is a merge commit. With the squash and merge, we would just have gotten 1 commit. So let's go to the other pull request we created, take a look at that. And now we can see that we have some conflicts which actually doesn't let us merge. It's possible to resolve these conflicts in the command line. We could also do it on github.com. So let's try that out. Resolve conflicts, we say, and then we have these markers. You would also have these in your local files if you try to do this locally. And basically, what these mean is that what we see here comes from the current branch, and what we see here are recent changes from the main branch. And we can see that here we are adding an onClick, and here we're adding a class name. So we need to decide what should be how can we resolve this conflict. And in this case, what we want is to have both. So we would resolve this by doing this. And that's basically it. We will say mark as resolved, and we will say commit merge. And now if we look at the changes, we will see that yeah, we got the class name now here, and then we're adding the onClick. And now when we do a merge, Git will know how to do that, because we just told it how it should merge this code with what is currently on main. So if we go back here, we can now merge, and this time we have 2 commits here. And if we do a normal commit like we did before, we will end up with actually 3 commits in the main branch. But I personally like the squash and merge, which will end up with just 1 commit. So let's use that this time. And if we go back to Git history here, we'll see that we had 4 commits before, and now we have 5. So let's look at what we have here. We can see that we are on main, but we haven't pulled down the changes. So we do that by saying git pull. Now we have both the new style, and we should also have where it works with the incrementing part. That seems to work. Up until now, we have only made changes locally and then pushed it to GitHub. But the changes could also be on GitHub, and then we want to pull those changes down. That would usually happen if someone else on your team has made some changes and you want to inspect those changes locally and perhaps continue working on the same branch. So let's do something like that by modifying the README on GitHub. Here we're just going to say hack your snippets, and say very simple GitHub gists clone. Let's preview the changes. This looks fine. And now we are sort of explaining what this piece, this code is doing, and we're still keeping the default instructions here. So that looks fine. And we want to create a new branch from this, and let's just call it update README, and propose those changes. So now directly on GitHub we have created a branch, but let's not create a pull request. We don't need that yet. So if we go here and inspect the branches, we can see we have this new branch here. How can we get this branch locally? If if it was a branch we had created locally, we would say git checkout update readme, and let's try that. And that does not work, and that is because we haven't pulled. When we do git pull, we will see that now Git has detected a new branch being created on GitHub. And now if we do a git checkout like this, Git will know that, okay, you probably want to create a new local branch with this name, and that should be tracking this branch with the same name from GitHub. And that is exactly what we want. So we do like that. And when we say git log, we will see that we have this commit here. And actually we can look at just that commit by saying git show. That will be the same as saying git show head. And we see that that is the change we just made on GitHub. And let's take a look at the application again. Let's say that I want to I'm noticing that there is like a visual thing I want to change. So I made the font size bigger in the header up here, and we can inspect the changes I just made. Yeah, looks fine. And then we commit that. Say increase header font size. And we say git log, and we see the changes. This is not pushed to GitHub just yet. And actually, it doesn't really make sense to have this change in this branch. We have this branch is called update readme, but I'm actually also changing some styling. So actually, it wouldn't make sense to have this in a different branch and a separate pull request. So the way we could do that is to copy this git sha, and then again we can create a new branch calling saying like tweak header font size, and we want to create this based off of main and not from the current branch. So when we say git log, we can see that this is the same as main currently, and then we can do a cherry pick of the commit sha I just copied. Git cherry pick will then basically take that one commit and then move it, or take that one commit and apply it to this branch. It will not move it. It will still keep it in the other branch. So now we have that branch with only that change. We can say git diff main, saying that show the changes against main, and that is now only that one. If we go back to the previous branch, we can do that by having this dash. We would we actually don't want to have this latest commit we just made, because now we have that in a different branch. So what we can do here is to say git reset, and this time we'll do a hard reset. And similar to before, we're saying that go back to the previous commit, and by doing a hard reset, this is a destructive change, meaning that we can't really that we don't keep the changes as we did with the soft reset. And now we are back to what we had before. Now we're going to take a look at a bug that was introduced and actually deployed to production. You can see that the star button is actually doing the opposite of what we wanted to do. It is decrementing or decreasing the count. And if we go to GitHub, we can actually go and inspect some of the files. If you go to this index.js, we can use the blame feature. Blame has sort of a negative meaning, but it's also a way to just find out, why a certain change was made, and perhaps find a pull request where you can get some more context. And actually, I noticed down here that when we update the snippets start count, we are now saying -1. And we can see that this was caused by this commit here, made by myself, and this you could imagine that this got merged into main as it is here and actually deployed to production. And in this case, we usually don't want to rewrite the Git history by going in and doing a reset like we did previously. Instead, we would like to create a new commit just with the opposite changes. Basically, that is what we can do with the git revert. So let's see here that this is the commit SHA. And if we go to the command line here, we can basically just do git revert and then specify the commit SHA. And this will by default give us a commit message like this, and this looks fine. And now let's before we push again, let's see that it actually did what we want. So now it's back to what it was before, and this is increasing the count as we want. So let's push this now. So we did this directly on main. In a case like this where we had a severe bug, it could be feasible to work and do this directly on main, but you could also create a pull request with this revert commit. So we will do git push here, and the issue should now be fixed. In this video, we have looked at git push, and while doing the push, also setting the upstream, so our branches, our local branches and the remote ones are connected. We have also seen git resets. With the git reset soft, it will keep the changes. It will keep the changes in as staged files, while when we're using the hard reset, it will basically discard the changes. So that's a destructive action that we should be careful with. We have also done cherry picking, and in the last example, we also saw how we can revert a change by creating a new commit with basically the opposite changes. And lastly, I want to mention something about Git. It's possible to use Git in different ways. In this video, I've only shown how you can use Git in the terminal. Knowing Git on the terminal or command line is good, but feel free to use other kind of Git clients, like the more visual ones, where there is some kind of user interface. For instance, there is a GitHub desktop. There's also one built into VS Code and Atom, some of the other text editors. And personally, I also use a GitHub sometimes. I think that's only a Mac only Git client. So there's not. So I think on the command line you will get like the full capabilities of Git, while in the visual ones you will get the most commonly used actions. but feel free to use whatever you like. And I hope that this video helped with some of these more advanced concepts. There are obviously many more concepts to dive into. This is just what you will use more frequently. As next steps, you could go in and you could look up the documentation directly on the command line or online for the different commands, like git cherry pick. You can go in and look at the different options you have there. Another powerful git command is the ability to rebase. That's also a good one to take a look at.